and welcome to the South African Equestrian Federation's podcast from the horse's mouth, where we bring you all trending topics and exciting updates for the equine industry in and around South Africa. And today, very excited to be bringing you something a little bit more global. Understanding how horses move and how we influence that movement as riders and trainers has never been more important. So this May, the Centerline Collective is bringing the first of many, hopefully, International Biomechanics Symposium to Kyalami Equestrian Park, gathering some of the world's leading minds in equine and rider biomechanics for what promises to be an unmissable learning experience. So previously we hosted saddle fitter Amanda Anderson and biokineticist Anne Miller. So today joining us are two of their fellow experts. We have Alejandra Gonzalez, a 4-star embodied rider biomechanics coach and faculty member with Train Your Seat, whose work focuses on rider awareness, position, and influence, and Simon Kokoza, who has, luckily for us, come to lecture in South Africa before. He is one of the world's leading authorities in equine biomechanics and postural rehabilitation in horses, the author of Core Conditioning for Horses, wonderful book, can't recommend it enough. It's on my personal bookshelf. And together they represent both sides of the partnership, rather, the rider and the horse. And today we're going to unpack why that connection matters more than ever. So I just want to say welcome to Ale and to Simon. Thank you for joining us today.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for having.
So the way I like to work things is I'm going to have 10 questions for each of you, and let's alternate it. And then at the end, we'll go through 5 questions for both of you to answer a little bit about the symposium and the work that you do. But Alejandra, Ale, if I can kick off with you, if you don't mind, for anyone who hasn't heard of you and who might be new to your work, what is embodied rider biomechanics? What does it actually mean?
Well, it's body awareness, how our brain is this amazing machine, the best thing that we can have in our body. And how we get more awareness, more connection to our tension, our weight, our aids, and more coordination to ride better and to be a better load to our horses. That would be a very simplistic way of saying it, but very effective. Body awareness.
I like the concept of being a better load. When we interviewed Amanda, the saddle fitter, Amanda spoke about, she said, it doesn't matter, you can have the world's best fitting backpack, but if you've got a crazy toddler inside there, it's not going to be a great trip for anyone.
Exactly.
So and your work, Ale, focuses on educating and making riders aware of this and then correcting it.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Everybody has a unique nervous system, right? We cannot compare ourselves to anybody else. The way we learn, the way we feel our body, the way we understand the horse's movement. Everybody's in a different stage, like a 12-year-old cannot be compared to a 20-year-old, to a 60-year-old, right? We have a different experiences, different nutrition, different hormonal stages in our life that will affect our nervous system, right? So my balance and how I perceive balance is unique. And working through proprioception and, again, body awareness through our nervous system will help to connect better to the horse.
I think anyone who's ever had that moment with a coach, and I think a basic one is having a coach say to you, sit up, sit, and then they say, okay, so now lean forward or lean back. And you think, what? And then they catch that moment and they say, look in the mirror. And you feel like you're sitting, and then you go, oh, and I think that moment of realizing that your proprioception can lie to you. And
our brain is lying to us all the time.
So I love you saying the brain is this wonderful thing. I hate my brain. It's terrible. Needs to go for rehab.
We need to love our brain and to keep our brain happy. And a happy brain has a very clear, to make our brain happy, we need clear input from the visual system, the vestibular system, the proprioception system, and our respiratory system too. So
That's interesting.
that's what makes our brain happy, and that's how we can improve movement.
Okay. I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I also love the respiratory system, because when you said that, I thought that's novel. I haven't heard of that. But if you're not breathing, I think you're going to have big problems going on.
The better we breathe, the better balance we're going to have. And that is such a easy way to improve the way we move on the
That's
horse.
that's that's interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Simon, if we
It's
can
fascinating.
I love speaking to people who are passionate about their expertise. Simon, if we can come over to you, what first drew you to specialize in equine biomechanics and postural rehabilitation?
I'd like to quote somebody to start this. In fact, Alois Podasky, the director of the Spanish Riding School in Vienna, he wrote a very famous book, The Complete Training of Horse and Rider. In his last interview, the interviewer asked him, I think he was 82 at the time, what you've achieved everything in the art form. What's left for you? What would you like to achieve before you leave us? And he said, I'd like to ride a perfect circle.
Oh,
So I think that what we're doing is we're dealing with something that cannot be done perfectly.
yeah.
So this endless pursuit of trying to have as much enjoyment when we ride a horse, whether that means performance or cooperation, and our horses to evolve as people and to physically get stronger and healthier as they get older. We've lost sight of that to some extent, but as a competitor and a trainer, it became very obvious to me after a certain number of years bringing on teams of horses, having a lot of horses around me, working a lot of horses, that there are a number of negative cycles that are interfering with our progress, with our achieving something close to the dream. And so what I try to do is I try to aim for the things that are having the biggest negative impact and eliminate them. And that brings up the average of the overall ability of the horse and rider to get the job done well. So equine biomechanics, what I found was that I could make a very large impact to a horse's balance, flexibility, rideability, happiness, education, speed, performance level by specifically aiming for certain parts of the horse's body and making sure that they were supple, had a good range of motion, and started to get stronger. That I found unblocked more problems than anything else that I had been working prior.
I think it's really interesting, and just to touch on, are we overriding certain parts of the body as a generalization and underriding other parts?
I would say that if we take the premise that the horse's body was not designed to carry a load in the middle of the back, it's not a supportive part of the body. It's already got the very heavy gut, very big gut in a herbivore, and the organs to carry. So when we get on board, particularly in the beginning, the structures within the body can't take the rider's weight and the weight that they were designed to take. And so we start to get very early on in the backing stage, a tension forming under the saddle. We don't necessarily know about it because everything's wobbly at the backing stage, but it haunts us. And 10 years later, when you're trying to get absolute maximum performance out of this horse, you realize, in fact, that the back has been blocked for a very, very long time, and they've just been operating as best they can with their legs. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's so funny because it wasn't my intention, but both of you have basically hit on something very interesting within the first question, that that often, and we find it often with riders, I think, that horses and riders think they make these big leaps of progress, and then they land up plateauing somewhere. And there's often somewhere, and Alay, you touched onto it as well, that they are fundamentally I don't even want to say mistrained. They've missed the level somewhere. They haven't quite grasped the concept. And Simon, you make me every dressage rider, more than anything, but every good rider obviously is familiar with that suicidality almost of the perfect 20-meter circle. And you can go your entire life. And I remember listening to it was amazing. I was overseas and you just feel like a sponge. And I was listening to a Grand Prix rider, and he halted and he said to his coach, "Oh, I think I understand now for the first time what the outside rein is for." And I went, "Oh no, like that's not right." But yes, it's this coming full circle and coming back to and then spiraling in and going to that deeper understanding. So I think that's a lovely introduction to you. Thank you. Alay, if I can come to you, how does rider posture and awareness influence a horse's movement, and how much? Because I think we would love to imagine the horse is the primary athlete.
Mm-hmm. We have to understand that not the horse and not the rider are symmetrical, right? We are going to compensate, but we have to think about horse and rider like is it okay if I say balancing system?
Yes.
Yes,
it is,
right? Like we are a system. We together, rider and horse, create a system, right? And if my posture, if my pelvis is any pelvis, well, like every pelvis will have a different rotation, or our spine also has a different degree of deviation. But if we try to help the horse being aware of those things and helping, like, for example, rotating or circle to the right, how is that so difficult in your body to go to the left, or easier to the right, or easier to the left? Same thing with the horse. Our horse is always compensating for the lack of flexibility or the lack of mobility in our body, right? So that's why I'm so excited about this, because I imagine that we could understand the horse's body and the human body working together as a system, right? I'm a big fan of Simon's work, and put it together, all those systems, the horse's system, the human system, and making a new system, and how the generations to come will understand movement. That is exciting, like that is, for me, that is just like, oh my God, I just taught 13-year-old this weekend, and she was like, oh yes, I can feel it. Can you imagine being a 13-year-old understanding how your pelvis moves, how your seat bones are walking one at a time, instead of just driving forward like a one piece, like that is the most exciting thing for me. So yes, our horses are compensating all the time because we don't understand enough about our body.
And I suppose, I mean, it's a self-answering question, but part of people seeing a difference, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be a better rider, but it's so interesting to see different riders get on the same horse and to see how they respond differently to that.
Correct. And the most interesting thing is that sometimes we think that it's a training issue.
Yes.
Right? And we're not aware that even with a little bit of change or awareness or mobility, the horse is going to say, oh, thank you, lady. You were blocking me. Right? So I couldn't move better. And now I can use my body better. and I can use maybe like achieve a better range of motion here. Maybe like that is so. It's fascinating. It's amazing.
It's inspiring and it's empowering. And I said when we were speaking to Anne Miller, I said, sure, that's it's a bit depressing to take on that responsibility in a way,
Oh,
and to go. And she said, no, it's exciting. Isn't it great
it
to
is
realize
exciting.
that there's something you can do today that's going to make your horse feel better tomorrow? And I
Exactly.
really love the concept of that. Simon, if I can pop over to you, when you assess a horse, what are the key indicators of poor posture or dysfunction within an equine athlete's body?
I would say their ability to master their own center of gravity. There's usually I mean, it's different every case, but there's usually a 10-to-1 weight ratio between the rider and the horse. So the rider is a component, a very important component, and a system all within itself. So you've got two psychologists, two physiologists, two centers of gravity, musculoskeletal system, neurological system, endocrine system, psychology. There are so many variables interacting with each other continuously, leading on, obviously, from Alejandra's excellent point there. So when I see a horse without a rider on, what I'm looking to assess is how much of their skeletal system is working efficiently. For example, if the horse doesn't have the strength or the ability to flex through the back properly in walk, trot, and canter, and obviously the internal geometry in each pace is completely different, then you get a loss of the mastery of that individual center of gravity and an overloading in various areas. Now, obviously, if the horse, for example, if the horse can't bend laterally, they tend to load one leg more than the other leg and sort of lean round corners and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that means, because the horse can't bend, what they have to do is they have to throw their weight and ruin the weight distribution and chuck their center of gravity somewhere. I mean, the poor things, they actually have a lot to deal with. Mm. And if a horse can't tuck the pelvis under and close the lumbosacral junction, the sort of lobster tail joint at the back of the spinal column, then they can't displace their considerable weight towards the rear, over the hocks, over those big muscles at the back, so it all falls onto the forehand. So obviously, the rider's intervention is usually to make the best of a bad job if the horse hasn't got the ability to carry themselves in perfect balance and not lose their balance ever. But of course, the prerequisites for that to happen are an extremely well-functioning biomechanical distribution of forces, weight, and movement throughout the horse's body. So I'm looking for agility. I mean, I'm not the only one. If you go to Germany and you want to buy an expensive dressage horse and conquer the world, you see them trotting the 3-year-olds round. What are you looking for? You're looking for athleticism. There's no secret. You're also looking for the horse's ability to adjust its lateral and longitudinal balance without it even looking like it's had to make an adjustment, just like a human athlete. So that's really what I'm looking for. But it's very easy to look at a very well-moving horse and say, that's how a horse should move. Yes, of course, we can all do that. I think the struggle bust is looking at a horse and saying they're not moving optimally. Where, why, and what are we going to do about it before we put this horse through any more suffering by riding them while they're out of balance?
I think what's interesting is you're describing what everyone could assess when they sit thinking, am I a candidate to bring my horse here, is just looking at their dressage test or their latest show jumping round. I fell in around the corner and I had that pole. That's like you say, a well-balanced athlete would be able to self-correct that. My horses, the left circles are consistently smaller than the right, and it would be, as you said, Simon and Ale, hand in hand with, well, what is the rider's competence? What is the rider's role in this? But then also, what is the horse's natural inclination? And I find it interesting you saying what is looking at a good dressage horse, because there's a certain level. I was looking at the Kentucky yearling sales, and the good athletes are the good athletes. It's really interesting. And you find that often, I think, in humans. Ale, I was listening to a podcast of yours from a while ago, and you were saying that athletic people they're often multidisciplinary athletes. So they might have if they're a cyclist, they might have tighter muscles that you see there. If they're a runner, something else. If they're a swimmer, but athletes are athletes. But Simon, when you talk about doing an assessment at walk, trot, and canter, is that, and I'm asking this because I've seen you teach it, on a long rein, on the buckle, and that is also a self-assessment people can do themselves, that they must be able to walk, trot, canter on the buckle on their horse.
I think if we're serious about this, we all need to sort of coldly face reality. Okay, so we're getting climb on the back of a sentient creature. We have a responsibility to use our brains when we're doing it. And I would say that if you get on your horse and it feels like it's a struggle for your horse, don't ride through it. Don't go. I'm just going to torture this poor creature by fulfilling my competition dreams or whatever. Yes, we need to play the game a little bit smarter these days and say, okay, so I can't turn left without putting a lot of force on my horse's mouth. All right, we need to do something. We need to find out why. We need to develop an exercise regime that will improve my horse's suppleness to turning left. I mean, we do it with everything else in our lives, but we tend to feel with horses, I don't know, it's a subculture, it's almost an assumption that the horse is made by BMW and it should be able to do it properly if I can just operate it properly. But that's not true. The best, I mean, it has its own brain. So once we can get a minimum level of motility through the spinal column, in particular, if I were to choose one area, and yes, as you said, the horse should be able to walk, trot, and canter with their nose very, very close to the ground, in perfect balance through the torso. For me, that's the baseline. If the horse can't do that, you let go of the reins and the horse pings its head up in the air and pokes you in the eyes with its ears, there's a problem, right? So the answer is not, I need a double bridle. The problem is that obviously this horse is reacting to something and I need to get to the bottom of it intelligently.
And one of those elements would be, Ale, making sure that you're a good backpack. So, Ale, what are...
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, carry on.
No, yes, I was just thinking, we are so humans, right? We say, oh, this horse is doing this horse is doing that, blah, blah, blah. But what about me? Can I turn to the right as good as I can to the left? Am I athletic enough? Do I have, like a fitness level that I can ride this trot enough? Or am I, we have to have the other 50%. We ask so much of our horses, like if it was a car or a bike or something that you just turn on and go. But what about my ability, my mobility, my flexibility, my suppleness, my relaxation or coordination in the movement?
And as a segue to my next question for you is, what are the most common rider imbalances that you see across all the disciplines? But I just want to also put that in, humans are not naturally ambidextrous. We usually left or right-handed. That must play a massive part in it. And then Simon, I want you to, after Ale's answered, I mean, that must influence our horses as well, besides the fact that the horse has their own things going on. But Ale, what are the most common rider imbalances that you see?
Yeah, you just say it perfect. It was,
sorry,
it's like right, left, totally, yeah. No, it was perfect. It's perfect. And that will influence everything, right? The way we turn, the way we move the way our pelvis also, like for example, our symmetry, it is not perfect. We have heavier organs on the right side to start.
That's
Does it make
interesting.
sense? We have the liver, we have, yeah, our organs are not symmetrically, see, 50% here and 50% here. No, our um, gravity, center of gravity also can be moved a little bit, just like the horse's center of gravity. It's not like the belly button is your
Yes.
middle, right? So we are all the time fighting that imbalance, and we're fighting gravity, and we're fighting centrifugal forces also.
Yes. So that
So
centrifugal force is
they
that
are
lateral force on the horse. Okay.
exactly like in movement, we're fighting gravity and centrifugal forces, and the way we turn and the way we move, it will also affect that. So the fact that we are right-handed or left-handed is going to influence the way we move through the world and through life. And
And I think
yeah, there
through life
is,
is an
of
interesting one
course.
because you often find people
Mm-hmm.
later on, the horses can be a small reflection of it. But somebody who is consistently taking more weight on a right knee, that knee's going to go at some point in life, even if you stop riding.
Correct.
That's interesting.
Yes, and the way our seat bones, like, is very common to feel one seat bone in a different shape than the other. If we
Yeah.
pay attention, we can find one seat bone is pointier, the other one is flatter. That means like maybe we have a little rotation in our
Okay.
pelvis, right? And sometimes we don't have the awareness that that is happening. Oh yeah, I feel my seat bones, but how do you feel your seat bones? Is there more weight in one seat bone than the other? Is it, like the shape, the position? Is it one a little bit forward than the other? And that, I'm just talking about the pelvis, but that
Mm.
will transfer to the knees, to the feet, to the weight in the stirrups. So we all have different ways, and or different let's say little things that we need to adjust to help the horse to move better.
And Alay, is that part of what you do? You'll help to assess and make the riders self-assess what their issues are.
Mhm. And the concept feel, right?
Yes.
How can you describe a feel? Do you
Yes.
feel, we ask, do you feel this? Do you feel, yes, but if you don't know how it feels, how can you find it?
So
So
I
it's
like
through
the idea.
feel.
I like the concept of introducing feel because I think a lot of riders feel quite at a dead end or depressed if they get told they don't have feel. And
Yes, and we can improve feel through proprioception. That's 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 the highlight, right? We
it's
can
so
get
cool.
our brain, yeah, we can get our brain to really understand what degree of tension we have, what is it that maybe we were just feeling or understanding, um, again, the seed bone in a different way, and we didn't have the right image.
Mm.
So understanding the parts, understanding the anatomy is going to help also our brain to get the feeling, and through also through the mechanoreceptors in our skin, our fascia, our muscles, our joints. So the better we have those receptors alive, the better our brain is going to coordinate movement, and we're
That's
going
great.
to achieve better feel.
I love that. Simon, before I move on to my next question for you, um, how much horses obviously have their own inherent, as much as Alay is describing riders' inherent issues and what they're good at and bad at, and horses obviously have all of that, and then they have to deal with our issues and our preference for a side and a stronger right hand. And how much is that? I mean, that makes your job kind of doubly difficult, I'm sure.
It doesn't have to be perfect to be good.
I like that.
All right. The trouble is you could get paralysis through analysis with any of this stuff. And I'm sure Ali's been there. I've been there. You know, where you just think yourself into a circle. And the trouble is if you try and micromanage the horse or yourself, you just end up causing tension, because tension is the body's way of protecting itself and it doesn't know what to do, with the horse as well. And so I think that, you know, it's interesting that every time I hear Alejandra talk, I just want somebody at the FBI to invite her onto a committee, because it's so interesting. Because of course it is we are talking about combining two organic creatures physically and psychologically. It wasn't going to be easy. And also there are going to be certain waypoints where we get stuck, they get stuck, they make us stuck, we make them stuck. And it's almost to the point where there's so much going on that you cannot unravel it alone. That's why it takes a village. And all of us need to be doing what Alejandra is teaching, because I rarely see a rider that is as fit and supple as their horse. Me included, actually. I'm thinking we're feeling really guilty. Anyway, I think that, so what happened, I think when it comes to the imbalance and the impact of rider imbalance, I think that what it is horses are survivors. You know, they'll hobble around on a broken leg, they'll stiffen their back and they will cope. And that gives us the impression that the way the horse goes is just the way that horse goes. And you've got to somehow cope with it by water skiing on the mouth or standing up in sitting trot, stuff like that. We see it at the very highest level. Where in fact, I think that it is a chicken and egg, it is cyclic. But the onus is on us because it's our idea in the first place for dragging this horse along. So we have to make sure we're beyond reproach. So now, obviously, this is where rider biomechanics and rider technique are very, very, very important. Nevertheless, I think that because of the way horses move and most of the common faults in the way horses move, which again are not the horse's fault, there are some pretty high brick walls in between where the rider is with their horse and progress that are fairly easily knocked over. But we tend not to go there in daily training. We tend to train horses and riders around it and also through it. So if the horse is experiencing tension or the rider is not comfortable, we do have a lot of pressure, and it's very much accepted that the rider drives through these issues, holds on tighter, grips with the knees, leans back a little bit further, leans on the horse's mouth, puts the horse in a position where they have to overextend some parts of the body because other parts of the body have ceased functioning and have gone into a defensive spasm. So I think the trick is, all know,
nothing makes tension go away like more tension, right?
Oh yeah, that works, doesn't it? But the trouble is, you can mask it. I mean, you know, you spend enough time in the, I'd say particularly the dressage world is particularly guilty of this one. Yeah. And you know, I get on, you know, occasionally, quite often, I get on Grand Prix horses, and I think, how the hell do you ride this thing? I mean, it's piling down on the contact. It's turning like the SS Lusitania, you know, and basically it's been desensitized to the point that it's like a coal-fired engine, and that if you don't use the spur, it's just completely dead. And it's like, this is ridiculous. This is not what riding is all about. Because I think that sometimes we're chasing a look. We're chasing an appearance, whether it be paces, position, movement in dressage. And a lot of us, I think it's changing. I mean, the FEI met yesterday to redraw the 2026 dressage rules, which is good news. We'll see what they do. We need to go back a little bit, back a step and say, okay, this is not just for show. We need to work out how to do this with integrity and properly. And yeah, is it more work? Sure. Do we have to take on more parameters? Definitely. But the end result is it's more beautiful, and the horse lasts longer, and you don't get a bad back from riding. I mean, when it's going well, Alejandro, I don't know if you agree. When your horse is going well and you're going well, you can have a bad back when you get on your horse, but you get off and you feel better.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how many riders can say that? Yeah. So this is why these sort of webinars are fantastic, because we're getting the laundry, all right, taking them out the cupboard where nobody can see it. We're hanging it up and say, okay, here we are. This is what we're doing. These are the problems. We've all got the same problems to a greater or lesser extent. Let's talk about solutions. Let's give it a try. Let's get proactive about it and be positive. And I think things can change very, very quickly. So thank you for putting this together.
Well, thank you for joining us, both of you. It's really, it's so great to have people. And I think what I'm particularly loving about the vibe of the symposium is how often do you see professionals coming together? And I think it tends to be a divisive industry. I suppose all industries at the top end are, because we're designed to compete and we're designed to feel like there isn't enough meat on the table for everyone. And when everyone can come and add something and be open and humble and add something from and take, and horses, aren't they the ultimate humblers? You know, I love that phrase. If you aren't a humble person, your horse will make you one, because there's always an opportunity.
Very quick.
Yeah. There's always an opportunity to learn from someone. Simon, how much of what we see as training issues are physical limitations in the horse? And I'm not talking about necessarily structurally. I'm talking about I've perhaps phrased this a bit poorly, but physically poorly trained limitation, imposed limitations. So when we say like the horse has a bad mouth, how much of that is body conditioning?
I would say the majority. I mean, the thing is, it depends what the trigger is. If the trigger is bad riding, then the horse has become defensive, and they've decided that it's a good idea to lean on the bit and grab hold of the bit because they don't know what the bit's going to do next because the rider's got bad hands, then that would be a training issue, a psychological issue, and the rider needs to deal with it. Obviously, that's associated to many other parts of the rider's technique that are probably failing for the rider to feel that they have to do. So you end up in a situation where, like a bad relationship, where people are triggering each other, and they know what each other's triggers are, so they're bloody expecting it before they even do it, and so you get into this sort of negative cycle. The horse knows how the rider's going to ride it, goes out there every day and goes, okay, so I'm just going to come up with a better contingency to deal with this, to get through this hour. And so that does have a physical effect. Obviously, if the horse is bracing anywhere in the body, you're going to get a sustained, a continuous tension build-up that over the years it turns into a very substantial resistance. Probably started as a decision the horse made, and then ends up having a physical impact, because of course you can't throw these weights and forces around without there having continuously, without there being a long-term impact. But I think the trick is to spend, and this is where I feel is the most important work from my perspective, is to stretch the horse properly.
Okay.
Because then I think what happens is that seems to reduce the impact of most of the triggers. I think if you get on a horse and you say, come here, I'm going to put you on the bit and we're going to go and do this. And the horse knows what you're going to do because you do it every day. Anything positive that you may be building is probably matched by something negative that you're building too. Where if you get on and you say, okay, I'm going to do what a human does before we ask anything strenuous, we say we're going to have a really nice stretching session. And if we find that you can't stretch, we're not going to put you under that much pressure in a training situation later. then I think what I find, it breaks a lot of those cycles. The rider starts to let go, the horse feels freer, they have a better sort of psychological attitude towards the whole affair.
Yes.
So they're less triggered and less likely to expand upon defenses as the session and the week and the months and the years go on.
And Simon, I'm asking here, but surely a muscle also can only contract as much as it can stretch. I mean, there must be hard science to the stretching theory.
Well, it's no different from people. If you spend a lot of time extending a muscle, it will get longer. If you spend a lot of time progressively adding load to the point of fatigue, you will break muscle fibers and they will rebuild, and then you get an Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I think that, again, under the spirit of not micromanaging us into a corner, very basically taking time to stretch the human body so you have range of motion, and the horse's body so you have range of motion, would probably knock on the head 50% of the problems people are experiencing from novice to Grand Prix. They just don't manifest into something big. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really love that. I just also do want to say, and I've written it down, paralysis by analysis. I love that because I think it's also very easy to do a lot of thinking and not a lot of action. And I think we run the risk of doing that without, we've gone from, I think, being in this like perpetual action where we just did things with horses to now we are under, they call the social license to operate. We all feel like we're under a spotlight. We're all trying to be better. And it's easy, like I could see you as Elaine and I were talking, saying, we all want the perfect 20-meter circle, but it also doesn't exist. So just go do a 20-meter circle, which I think is great. So, Elaine, moving back to you, how often do riders unknowingly and unintentionally, obviously, hinder their horse's performance through their own bodies?
Well, I think, as you said, also, like, we are trying our best. We love horses. That's why we ride. That's why we enjoy any activity with horses. I think everybody's doing their best, right? But as riders, we need also to understand. A very fresh example is, for example, when the horse's inside leg comes under, what happens to the barrel? It moves to the opposite side, correct? At the walk, it's going to be a little bit more pronounced than in the trot, and in the canter is going to be different. That knowledge, we need to be eternal students of the horse and understand how our body reacts to the horse's body. Right? Oh, my horse is a little bit tight or short. Yes, what is your outside leg doing? Is it receiving the horse's barrel, or is it pushing the horse's barrel? Right? Am I allowing that stride to be complete, so the horse's barrel really swings like a pendulum side to side? Am I allowing with my pelvis to that barrel to move freely? Or am I bracing and thinking that I'm going forward and not understanding the horse's biomechanics?
So that's interesting. So you're saying
more is deeper. Is deeper than what is. No, are we understanding the horse's movement?
So it's not so much a case of hindering as basic lack of education in the horse's movement.
And it's also the horses, of course, the horse movement. It's our platform, right? We're not in a chair. We're not in a Pilates reformer. No, the horse is our platform and is moving in different ways through different gates, right? Our body moves in 3 dimensions. right? In 3 planes of movement. The horse's body is moving in 3 planes of movement too. Do we understand that, right? Are we allowing our body to respond to that? So our sports have a lot of cues that are biomechanically incorrect. Correct?
Yes.
Like, be still in the saddle. How am I going to be still in the saddle if my body's if I'm sitting on a horse? I cannot be still in the saddle, right?
Still
Straight
hands.
back, straight back. Still hands, straight back. Is there something straight in our spine? Because
Lovely,
that is not the case, right? So I think it's deeper than that.
and
It's coming.
And it's fundamentally changing the language that we're using in our sports, from what I'm hearing. And I love that because I think you hear people say, one of my personal worst ones that I've always heard is soft hands. And as soon as you hear soft hands, everyone does that, and they still have a locked elbow. And it's changing. I think what both of you are saying is the education and the understanding around it, which is why a symposium is important and wonderful.
Yes, yes. Because a lot of cues cause tension, right? In the rider's body, that is going to be translated on the horse's body, because we're not respecting the horse's biomechanics. Of course, we need to understand more about the horse's movement to improve.
That's great. Coming back to our horse biomechanics expert. Can correct conditioning prevent long-term injury in sport horses?
Oh, that's a very good question. And with a very obvious answer. Okay, so we all drive cars, okay? So if you rag your car around corners, you're going to start wearing tires out, all right? So we know this. The horse's body obviously is not a machine that's designed for this job. So what happens is if there is incorrect weight distribution or any part of the system isn't working correctly, there will be a buildup of pressure somewhere else. Also, if the horse's body if the horse is not using its entire body to do the job, some parts of the body will be working harder than the ones that are lost. This is why horses wear out. I mean, I'm sorry, it's been a hard day. I am sick of seeing 10-year-old horses that are worn out. It's ridiculous. Their bodies are designed to last a lifetime. But just like ours, just like repetitive strain injury with human beings or people with a certain job where they have to use one particular body part a lot, it wears out. The beauty of riding horses is it should be the most beautiful, balanced and organic thing you've ever seen. A joining of two completely different species that have harmonized psychologically and physiologically. When that happens, the horse's body does last a lifetime because there isn't more pressure on one side of the fetlock than the other. 10,000, 100,000, a million footfalls. That is going to tear apart soft tissue. It's not designed for it. I mean, the thing is with the limbs, this is a good one, is that I see a lot of limb problems in horses. And irrespective of age, it's got to do with how they're moving. So if a horse is crooked, for example, because they're not using their back properly, so they're triangulating and displacing the pelvis to one side, or if there's a little bit of twist in the hocks, I think we've all seen that. Just imagine what that does to joints that are not designed to have a twist in them. They're designed to work on a zero plane. And if the hardware inside the horse's body isn't absolutely aligned all the time, if there is a concurrent flaw, a misalignment, it is going to gradually wear out body parts. So yes, if we trained horses properly, and let's face it, we used to. None of this is new. In the Renaissance, they worked it out. Most of it. They didn't have the diagnostics that we have today. So they didn't really understand how to do it on a mass scale. But in the past, they used their eyes and they could see that if they trained a horse thoroughly and properly, it would still be rideable at 25 or later, because everything in the body is balanced and it's working properly, and there isn't undue stress in any particular point, because it only takes 1 point. We've all had horses. You ping a tendon. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the horse is. That's it. It's finished. It's not like a car. You can't replace the wheel bearing. So yeah, this is not. I don't even think this is optional anymore. And I've been nice about this for about 10 years, and I'm feeling that actually a point needs to be made here.
Sounds like you had a day, but I hear you. I also, Simon, I'm interested by what you said, and I'm interested for you to weigh in on this. Something that Anne and Amanda both said is the core principles are nothing new. We're not introducing anything new here. They are old, classical, good core principles. And Amanda specifically said with saddle fitting, it's almost that with the more technology and the more information that's available, we've diluted the quality of information. And I find it interesting you saying, Simon, without needing all the diagnostics and everything that people inherently knew they needed their horses to last long, and they did the right things to make that happen.
All right, there's a caveat here. There's a very important caveat. So obviously, times have changed. In the past, the horse was our primary vehicle for war, transport, farming. So obviously, they wanted the horse to last as long as possible. So they basically looked at averages and altered their training methods and care methods to make the horse last as long as possible on average. But we can do better. So now we do have more data, we have better diagnostics, we can see stuff that's starting to go wrong. I look at a lot of x-rays. In fact, it's one of the things that I almost insist upon when I deal with somebody's horse is I want a full spinal thoracolumbar set of x-rays, because until I know what's going on in there, it's really speculation. So the advantage we have now is we have better food, we have better maintenance practice. Obviously, our horses cost a lot of money, where in the past, we were mass breeding horses for the military and for transport. Now, because it's fallen into leisure, it's actually quite costly. So we have evolved not only in the possibility of finding out what's going wrong with our horses and stopping it before it goes so wrong, that we have to, what we would have done in the past, and simply replace it. Okay. That's not an option anymore. So I think that what we do is we do what we always do, is we take what the people that came before us did, we try and absorb it in quicker than a lifetime, and then use the tools that we have available now to make the job, to do a better job, to take it to the next level. That's really it. But when it comes to training and the basics of it, before we introduced sport, I think that longevity was probably our primary concern. But now it's performance, and that's changed the game. But I think we can bring it all together, It's possible.
Alay, can improving a rider's biomechanics reduce their need for stronger aids and equipment?
Totally. It's efficient. When we use our body efficiently, when we understand what is efficient, what is efficiency? What do you think is efficient? Of the energy, right? We don't our energy. So again, come back to efficiency in your body, understand the horse's biomechanics, and apply the aids at the right time. It sounds so simple.
It does.
Right? It sounds simple. But that is efficiency. Yes, 100%. We can get lighter, more coordinated, and of course, the communication will be the most important part. And communication doesn't have to be yelling at the horse or the horse resisting. It is like, oh, do you feel that? Yes, let's do that. The horse is such an amazing, sensitive animal that understands and learns so fast. if we are capable of teaching it.
We're seeing, and I think it's still quite novel for people in a competition sphere to see this, but we are seeing more people jumping their horses in a neck rope, doing bridleless dressage. There's a wonderful French trainer called Alizé Fremont who's doing these liberty displays. And would you say it's not a trick, it's something that is achievable if people can, as you said, understand their horse's biomechanics and master their own?
Sure. I love to train my horses with just a neck rope. I do that. I do bridleless, all that. But it's a combination. We cannot just think that that's the only way I will ride the horse, right? I need to condition the horse too. It's a balance between things. We humans, we are so good on just going to the extremes, right? We need to find a middle, because again, yes, if you're capable, if you feel safe, but also it's a balance between helping the horse to get stronger, and please, Simon, correct me if I'm wrong, and get more muscles together. And that part we cannot achieve only bridleless, right? That's why we call the frame, the working frame of the horse, because we're working on their gymnastics. Yes, when we achieve a very strong, balanced horse, yes, we can play and take the bridle off and do all those wonderful things.
Because
But that's the problem. Yes, but that's the problem. We cannot start a 3-year-old with no balance, just bridleless, right? And that this can be a little conflict. But I, I like to use everything. I use a hackamore. I use a snaffle. I'm competing also in Western dressage, so I have been experimenting with the Western bits. And every tool, it's a good tool if you know how to use it, but it has to be at the proper timing in the horse's process of conditioning. And please, Simon, correct me if I'm wrong.
Couldn't have put it better myself.
I love that. I love any tool. Every tool is a good tool if used correctly and at the right time of the horse's training. I think that's great.
Exactly. Because we can make mistakes, because we see someone in a video that is doing these amazing things. Yes, but that has hours of preparation and conditioning of the horse and the rider also. I cannot, that's one of my challenges. Yes, some people, they just are some of my clients are going to the opposite side. They don't want to put contact on the horses. They don't want to take, a frame, a first level frame or training frame. They don't even want to do that because they're afraid of hurting the horses. We have the both sides. The only performance, oriented people, goal oriented people, and the opposite side of the spectrum. I don't want to hurt my horse. No, we need to condition your horse's back. We need to condition the horse's contact and frame and training through this healthy contact, right? Of course, it has to be a healthy way of doing it. I don't know if I'm expressing myself correctly.
I think also,
does it make sense?
You're touching on something that's great, which is in the social license to operate, where people are saying, well, then what must we do with horses? They're nothing. Then we can't ride them. So
exactly.
if we can't, if dressage is under such criticism and we're not doing Rolco and we're not allowed to do this, then what? We must just leave horses in a field. And as you say, it's our tendency. No, there's, and Simon, exactly what you were saying. We know better now. We went to one. Now we can take all of that information and we know all of this. We've got the best of technology now. And we can find this lovely middle ground instead of living in the extremes where, yes, riders tend to go. Simon.
That's what we do, though. I mean, sorry, can I just
Absolutely.
jump in on that one? So last night I watched a movie and Tom Cruise rode a motorcycle off a cliff, opened his parachute and landed in a train. Now, you could, if you were to watch that movie, think that it's possible to ride a motorcycle off a cliff, parachute onto a train. But what people don't realize is that this end product that people see as being a display in a movie.
I was about to say, where does the movie go from there? I hope the movie ended there. But it was probably the introduction to the movie,
No, it's fantastic. Mission Impossible, they're brilliant. But what they do is they train for years and there's green screens. What I'm trying to say is that what we have to be and it back on the point of no extremes, is that when you see somebody on a highly practiced dressage horse or riding without a bridle or jumping without a bridle, people, I think they're giving the wrong impression that this is some sort of magical, ethereal thing that belongs to a very, very high, it's a trick and it's a lot of practice, and which is why it's called a show, right? So I think what we have to do is we have to be real about what we're trying to achieve, develop good systems that are accessible to everybody, and keep everybody infused on the journey, because they can all get there. I mean, this is something that I wanted to mention earlier, I just forgot, is that I think horses, their body and their mind want to find harmony and balance. And anyone that rides has had that moment, even if it's a couple of strides, where everything falls into place and it feels effortless. And then you don't need to give aids anymore. You don't even have to think about what you want. It just all becomes easy and simple and intuitive. The road to that means you have to drive down every pothole and go around every corner and get lost in the woods. It's just part of the journey. And I think that by focusing too much on the outcome and not the process, yes, this is what's getting people into trouble, because they fix their position, they contain their horses because they want this outcome. And in fact, I mean, I can tell you both understand this, that the actual joy is in the journey rather than the destination, right? Because that's where the satisfaction, the beauty and the sensation, those moments where you're on your own, it's just you and the horse, and you've been working hard for 3 months and everything drops into place. And it all seems so simple just for a moment.
I think
we need to bottle that and, help people find that. And it's achievable because, of course, now, again, it's all tied together. All the things we've talked about is if we get the rider in the right condition with the right ideas and the right concepts, so they convey these things correctly to the horse, then every day you can make it a little bit closer to that perfection.
But I think
and
also
then when you have that,
enjoy every
you can
day.
go and win. Enjoy every day. Yes, enjoy every day. The bucking days and the falling off day. Well, the thing is, I think, again, if we use an intelligent system, so I lived in France for 20 years, and it used to amaze me after working under the British system that they just bring in a load of young men that would sort of consecutively get bucked off these 3-year-olds until the horse was too tired to buck them off. I was thinking, what are you doing? That is just not the most efficient way of getting this job done. And so I think that because the horse is such a cooperative creature, we can make some howling mistakes over and over and over again. And the horse will help us out and try and do its best for us. And that's let us down.
Well, Simon, I think you raise a very interesting point, because for people to say horses are naturally cooperative is a challenge for a lot of people whose narrative is, my horse is out to get me. So by the time you've got a horse that's out to get you and things are going wrong, things have gone so wrong that that your horse is not designed to be your enemy, as you say. And there's a lovely vet who I work with who says, you know, horses have, to your point about war, horses have galloped into cannon fire for us. You know, if your horse doesn't want to go over a plastic packet, or, you know, there's severe miscommunication going on. You know, they really they want to be on your side and do the right thing. And I loved what, you know, you've both spoken about chasing that final picture aggressively. And everyone thinks the path to success is a linear path, but it's that, you know, the whole way. And it's, oh, I feel great. Oh no, I want to kill myself. Oh no, I'm the best I ever was. I'm giving up riding. Oh no, you know. Yeah. And there's a great, I'm sure both of you have seen it. It's a ballerina, and she's got her ballet shoe on one foot, and the other foot has no shoe on it. And the ballet shoe looks beautiful. It's fantastic. Her foot looks strong, and the foot without the shoe on, the toes are shredded. There's blood. She's, you know, there's no toenail on the big toe. And I think, yes, it's very easy for people to chase that final picture without being aware of the cost of the final picture, the sacrifices of the final picture, and if you can keep the joy in the journey. I love that. We're making a series of bumper stickers, we decided in the last podcast. And Amanda's one was go to the gym. I said to her, what's your saddle fitting advice people are going to hate? She said, go to the gym. That's the best thing. That's the best thing you can do about your saddle. She says people are going to hate it. But the joy is in the journey is a great one. I really love that. As is ever the case with horse people, again, we got carried away hopelessly. We've decided to split this podcast into 2 episodes. We are busy interviewing the wonderful Alay and Simon, 2 of the clinicians for the upcoming International Biomechanics Symposium. So please do follow on and find part 2 of this interview.